Hello, my name is Lacey, and I'm doing the movie Legal Review, and I decided to do it on framing Britney Spears. And essentially, the movie is about her fighting this battle with her dad and with other people and trying to get, um, so they put a conservatorship on her because they felt like she was not fit to make her own decisions. And the movie is about the battle of her trying to get out of that. And essentially, she felt like she was in a state of mind where she could, and they first off put on a conservatorship for like a temporary because she was going through a lot of mental health issues and they really did not feel like she could make her own decisions. So that's why they put the conservatorship on. And later on over time there was like no need for the conservatorship, but her dad had the rights over her money, her hospital, anything that happened with her health, anything like that. He just had control all of that. And she didn't want him having access to that. She said, we can put other people in charge, a professional, or eventually like they got a bank to sign with him and be a co-conservatorship person on her case. And so unfortunately, like it was a long battle and it just ended actually, I think 2024. And essentially she has really struggled over a long time. Like she went through different things, and the movie describes how she goes through a divorce and custody battles, and those are the things that kind of like turn her over where she's having these really rough times, and that's why they're claiming that she's not able to take care of herself when in reality she is. It's just maybe, she's not making the best decisions, but in real life, would this really be happening to someone, and it's obviously a lot of money. So, getting into the legality of it, you know, um, there's a lot of different parts into it that I think Brittany could have brought to the attention of the the court. Starting off with like some of the torts that I think could have gotten brought up, or intentional infliction of emotional distress. I mean, she could prove that there was, outrageous and extreme reckless intentions because controlling her life and her money, negligence, fraud, false imprisonment, misappropriation of name, and all of that stuff. So that's kind of like the stuff that the documentary didn't really get into. So like kind of my critical side on that is I wish there was more details into that, but I think they also didn't have access to those details. Like this is something that newly, has come out more so, and more information has started to come out, and before it was very vague information. And so when the documentary came out, is they were using what they had. Um but essentially, a conservatorship is a legal agreement in which a court appoints an individual or organization to manage the person, the financial, and both of the affairs of an adult. And this is a person that's deemed um, unable to manage their own affairs. So at some point, maybe Brittany was at that stage in her life where she was unable to manage these things. But over time, like, with improvements and different things like that, I think that, it became just a sense of where like they wanted to have control over her and not because it was necessary. So the challenges of conservatorships are, people lose the ability to make their own personal and final financial decisions. And with someone that, the documentary talks about how high-strung she was and how she wanted to make her own decisions growing up. And she started off so young, and she was very involved in the process of her performances, her work, and all that. And everyone describes her as like this really creative person that, took stance on what she wanted. And I think over time, when the conservatorship got brought on, she completely lost all that freedom. And, she went and disappeared off Instagram. And that was the time that she kind of got into, you know, mental health, really bad state of mental health. And it had come out that she um, opted to go into the mental health facility, which came out to, not be fully the truth, and that she was put there because obviously her dad had control over that. And So that's like part of the problem is, she didn't feel as though she needed to be there, but he can do that. He can do whatever he wants. Abuse of power, which like just plays into everything that I've said. There's a potential for conservators to abuse the power where through the financial exploitation, neglect, or making decisions that benefit themselves rather than the conservatee, which, he's obviously getting paid or gets money from her. And especially with this whole legal environment, Brittany has to pay for herself, her lawyer, the conservatee, and or her conservatorship and his lawyer and everyone involved. So she's essentially paying all these people and financially providing for this fight for herself and her freedom and her liberty. And everyone creates this free Britney kind of stance and activism because people are realizing like she is trapped right now. She's not herself. She's not, at some point she stops posting at all, and you see these different problems. I think there's a lot of emotional and strain, which is one of the challenges of conservatorships because, you know, people can disagree and there's conflicts and disputes, and you kind of see that because you kind of see her mom come out later on kind of saying, Brittany deserves her freedom. Like she's at a point where she can make these decisions for herself, and her mom doesn't speak out often. But hearing her mom say that obviously was really interesting because obviously her dad was, taking a main approach on that, and that creates a strain on the family and just an inadequate oversight. And I think that really draws onto this particular situation because Brittany didn't have a problem with having a conservatorship. She had a problem with her dad being her conservatorship. And so I think that with her saying that she was okay with a professional or the banks being, tied on to her conservatorship and all this stuff, and it took a lot of time. And at one point, like the judges would approve, the co-signing of the bank or whatever, but would never approve for her to be her own, like be in charge of herself, which was really hard for her. Um, the circumstances of conservatorship are typically incapacity, where the conservatee must be proven to lack the capacity to manage their own personal or financial affairs due to mental or physical conditions. So this is typically something like dementia or severe mental illness. You see it a lot of times with older people because they're not able to make these decisions fit for themselves and what's in their best interest. These decisions are supposed to be made in their best interest, and for Brittany, that just was not happening. Um, there has to be, an evaluation, and people have to sign off on everything, and qualified experts in order to get the conservatorship. And maybe at the time, Brittany did need that. She was struggling mentally, and she wasn't making the best decisions. She was going through a lot with her divorce and different things. So throughout her life, she's gone through all this stuff. And I think, certain times she may have needed the conservatorship, but like I said earlier, she just didn't want her dad being in charge of that. She was okay with that circumstance, but as time went on, it was held on for too long, for sure. So, in order for someone to get a conservatorship, there has to be a petition, and the petition is filed, and then it must outline the reasons why a conservatorship is necessary. And then there's a hearing, and the court hearing will be held where evidence is presented of why they need a conservatorship. And obviously, that got approved for Brittany, originally starting as a temporary one, and it led into being a full conservatorship, and obviously went on for many, many years. That started um, long ago. And like I said, like the documentary didn't even have the final decision. I ended up looking that up myself, and in 2024, that's when Brittany finally won over her conservatorship and has the rights and her freedom to control her money, herself, her medical, all those things that, a conservatorship has control over. So how does someone get out of a conservatorship? Similar to getting into a conservatorship, they need a petition for termination. And Brittany was going for this, and she went for it multiple times and kept getting denied. Typically, I think in most cases, what they had said in the documentary is that they won't win when a conservatee goes to petition to get rid of the conservatorship. They won't win because it was put on them for a reason, and they're deemed to not be able to make decisions. So why would they let them decide that they don't need it anymore? Evidence is also a need for to get someone out of conservatorship, and obviously that's why I think this battle went on for so long for Brittany. Is she maybe didn't have the right evidence to show that he was not following the right path with conservatorship and not doing what's in her best interest. And then obviously after that, then the court reviews the evidence, the petition, and they will decide and determine whether the conservatorship is still necessary or not. And then the court decision, if the court is satisfied that the conservatee can manage their own affairs and that terminating the conservatorship is in the best interest, the court can issue an order ending the conservatorship. And with that too, a lot of times they can have ongoing monitoring so that they can, have evaluations and make sure that the person that gains their rights back and their conservatorship goes away, they have the right to you know, have different evaluations, because if that is needed later on again or any reason like that. But obviously, for Brittany, it was on and off. So maybe that would have been something, tied to her of an evaluation, but put in there that, her dad's not going to be a part of the conservatorship. Um, I think for Brittany's case specifically, it was really hard because of the public and media that were, adding all this pressure and were just tearing down her mental health. And at the time, her mental health was not stable enough for her to make these decisions. And I think that's why that this conservatorship got, pushed so hard. But it's really sad to see over time, she wasn't able to make any of these decisions for herself. And the family made it seem like she was making decisions, because there were decisions that she was making, but not decisions like up to the point that she should have been able to be making. Um, but overall, it was a really good opportunity to kind of see what conservatorships are and how detrimental they can be if it is put in the wrong hands of someone, and how they end, and what a conservatorship is. And it's really interesting seeing that in a different perspective than, maybe on someone that it has dementia that can't make those decisions for themselves, and always something to be aware of. So I think it was a really cool opportunity to watch the documentary. um, I think the documentary was a good exploration, but I think it would be really cool for them to do like a second part, especially now having the answer of Britney Spears winning the case, um, and maybe having some interviews from her, because I wanted to see more of a personal perspective, and that's what I thought it was going to be, because I didn't know much about it beforehand. But I'm glad I got the opportunity to learn more about the conservatorships and everything within the documentary and Brittany's life. So, thank you for watching.